Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we're taking a look at Division 1 and Division 2 in 4K Ultra settings with 4070 Ti. Now I know that these are older games. Division came out in 2016 while Division 2 came out in 2019. But since they do use Ubisoft's Snowdrop engine and technically they kinda do look good, you know, depends how you look at it, I must say let's take them for a spin, see what happens. So, option wise, as usual, and honestly that should not be a surprise, we're going with the native 4K. No reduced latency is going to be used. We're going to be using DirectX 12 renderer. Now granted, this is entirely up to you. To be fair, I'm still a strong believer DirectX 11 is more stable, but DirectX 12 is for Windows 10, so that's what we're going to be going with today. Graphic wise, the preset is custom because we need to disable vertical sync mode. In Ultra settings, vertical sync is enabled by default. Also, no frame rate limit. We're gonna be cranking everything we can up, apart from post FX anti-aliasing, because just doesn't make sense to me really. Resolution scale 100%, temporal area at super sampling, particle detail on Ultra, everything is high or ultra as much as we can, including anisotropic filtering, which I told you multiple times in 4K that should not matter, and you will actually gain a big chunk of performance out of it. Object detail by default is 60%, that's been cranked up to 100, and that's about it. So let's go for a benchmark and then we'll jump into the game and see what we actually gonna get. So here we are, and when it comes to the Division 1 or 2, I must say I do prefer the way Division 1 looks. It kinda does have this post-apocalyptic vibe on it. Also, we can see the GPU is being used at 98%, pulling 5.2 gigs of video memory and 10 gigs of actual RAM. So when this game dropped, a little bit of a controversy that supposedly the PC and console gamers actually got a graphically reduced version, which was completely different from what the Ubisoft was showcasing in those times E3 event. Then again, the player base is still somewhat active. I've seen players in both the original Division and Division 2, mostly in Division 2 because the level cap's been raised and whatnot, and yeah, you know, it's just kind of interesting to just replay these older titles really when you finally can max them out. I don't know if these games qualify as abandonware, but end of the day it shouldn't really matter, because as long as you can still launch it and play it, and you can still invite friends to your party and you can actually shoot, I think it's all good.
Hold up! I'm out for a sec!
And yeah, this is one of the showcase levels here, supposedly how they were trying to use the teamwork on about 4 NPCs or 5. But yeah, overall, it's not looking too bad, given the age of the game itself. And we're getting pretty decent frame rate, above 60 frames, which, to be fair, honestly, I already tested. It's not the case for Division 2. I mean, it's not going to be below 60, but despite the newer game, there are some weird things, including the Ultra preset not really maxing out the game. So what we get, average frames are 115, and average GPU usage apparently is 26%. However, as you see, the MSI is reporting 98. Anyway, I think let's continue the game, jump in the actual game just to see how good or bad it stacks up with the synthetic benchmark, and we're just gonna go from there really. So I just need to wait this loading screen, which gets longer every time I look at it. I don't know. I think I've been telling this like multiple times for multiple games. The most noticeable one I think is Red Dead Redemption Horizon Zero Dawn. If I had to pick the two ones where the loading screen just takes ages, but oh well. So here we are, and what do we have? We have 120 frames for now, dropping down good. We have some nice reflections here. Back in the day that was actually a pretty big killer for the GPUs. And at the same time, exactly as with Division 2, this is a multiplayer title, so it's a PvP, PvE And when it comes to graphical fidelity in these games, the developer needs to take into the account that the person playing this game will heavily rely on enemy location based on the broadband speed. So the more graphical fidelity you push into the game, the more it needs to be relayed over the broadband. Of course, you can defend saying that they do have load balancers in place and whatnot, so it doesn't happen. But essentially, you know that people are reducing graphical fidelity in competitive titles just for multiple reasons. Not only the frames, but also what you can see or just how quickly you will be getting something. Looks like we have someone here. And to be fair, at the very beginning when this game launched, I kinda liked it for a while, but I don't know. It just feels a little bit empty, really. And graphically, I wouldn't say there's too much of a difference, you know, even for 4K Ultra. Kind of feels a little bit... It could be better. You know, like, honestly, it definitely could be a little bit better. Then again, you do get the vibe of walking around New York City a little bit. And environment is a little bit responsive in regards to what you're doing to it. So I must say, playing solo is probably quite boring, because all this is a level caps. So if you go into the area where enemies have more level than you, then you're gonna have a pretty bad time. But apart from that, it's quite enjoyable with friends, really.
Thank God for people like you.
Oh, we're done here. Just give it up! Won't let him get away. Oh, they got him. Stay right.
I actually forgot you don't really have like a melee system here, or maybe if you have, I have forgotten it. But yeah, this is actually the performance, so I'll see you guys in Division 2. And this is Division 2, so this is game from 2019. As you can see, the character model already looks way better than on the first one. I guess this is what 3-year difference makes. So let's jump into the settings. So 4K native, no vertical sync, no reduced latency, and we're going to be using DirectX 12 for this. Graphic wise, exactly as before. So we're currently starting out with the Ultra settings. We need to disable the vertical sync and check everything else is actually maxed out, because same as on previous Division, like Division 1, some settings simply are not going all the way, so I do not know what gives, really. You know, it's just so bizarre for me to even imagine that they can give you Ultra option and not max the game out. It's just like, I just don't get it, you know, it doesn't make sense to me, really. All of these settings, and that's the Ultra preset. I mean, I feel like there should be another video in regards to this in certain games. So let's apply this and see where we land. There we go. So let's go for the benchmark, see how it looks and feels, and compare. Now, granted, this iteration of the Snowdrop engine is slightly tuned up for the visual candy. So we're going to be seeing how much frames we're getting and how it actually looks in this particular benchmark. So, yeah, we have 4 zones to go through based on this particular run. And as you can see, there's not too much of a difference when it comes to the frames. Now, the first division was giving us about 100 at the beginning, and then it dropped down to around 90-ish, 80-ish. And here we're starting at the 100 and we're right down at the 80. So there's a clear cut due to all of this visual candy, like the reflections, the water, the fog, the shadows, the model textures, the object level of detail, you know, all of this. And surprisingly enough, people are still playing this. So, you know, I understand this game is quite notorious, but at the same time, if you look at the MSI upper left, this game is about to pull 12 gigs of VRAM in 4K on Ultra, and it's pulling 14 gigs of RAM. So it's not exactly the easiest title to max out if you want the maximum eye candy for this game, which I believe is due to the fact that this is an online multiplayer PvP/PvE, where frames matter more than graphical candy, because you're not going to be looking at a tree leaf while you're being jumped by the Black Tusk. So this is one of the things to just keep in mind. And obviously this benchmark run is about to end. We're going to jump straight into the game, take a look how it looks and feels, and just go from there. And I still can't get over the fact that we need to double enable Ultra settings. It's just, oh. Right, there we go. So, average frames 84, GPU 77%, which is not true because as you see it's pegged. So this is either incorrect for the game or MSI is going crazy. And everything else seems pretty correct. So, now let's have a look if, you know, this game actually looks as good as we see on a benchmark.
Safe area entered.
We have entered a safe area, and we need to leave said safe area to go and see the graphical fidelity outside of the safe area. I must say, Isaac sometimes is a little bit of a chore to deal with, but here we are. So, clearly my character looks a little bit better. And GPU is doing 99% of the work. We're getting stable above 60 frames in all times. I just wanna kind of go into the sun so we can see the model texture and stuff. So as you can see, there is a little bit of reflection on the gun itself. A little bit of jagged edges, some shadow jumping here and there, but end of the day, as I said, this is an online multiplayer. So everything that can possibly reduce your network latency while playing, so your broadband does not need to push insane amount of graphical detail over for other players to see if they have slower broadband. This makes absolute sense. For the graphics themselves, well, I don't know what's going on there. That's a traffic light. Why is it leaking? It's leaking a lot. Do you guys have water-cooled traffic lights in US? Because honestly, I do not know. It seems to be leaking even more from a distance. Ah, Ubisoft, please never change. Right, so in terms of everything else that we can actually do, this game is essentially exactly the same. Now, granted, in terms of the DLCs, there are some changes here and there, but anyway. Let's go stir up some trouble if we can.
Electronic device detected.
Now, granted, my character build is pretty weak because after finishing the main campaign, if you can say so, and getting the Warlords of New York expansion pack, this is where my interest kind of stopped in this game, because same as in the original title, it's just too much for grind, which end of the day probably is a good thing when you play with friends. This is something you can actually kind of enjoy end of the day, but it is just simply not for me. At the same time, this is very playable. Looks exactly as Division 2, to be fair. Plays well. I can finally see some extra details here and there and everywhere. And frame rate is actually stable, so GPU usage 99%, which begs a question like, do you really need 4070 Ti to finally max this game out in 4K? I guess the answer is yes. But hey, you already knew that, didn't you? Well, I think you actually guys seen enough, to be fair, so yeah, this is the performance of Division 2 and Division 1, depends which part of the video you are ending up in. So yeah, I hope you're gonna have a good one. Well, there you have it. Hope you guys find this interesting and informative. And I hope to see you all next time. Over and out.